What's up, guys? This is another segment of Leave It to Weaver. I've had the pleasure of getting to sit down with Music in Motion Columbus's own Rick Geffen. How are you today, Rick?
I'm alive and well, surprisingly. Made it through another weekend.
There you go. How about for 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
Oh, wow. I feel like a bat and a vampire. It's like, ooh, daylight.
All right, Rick. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me today, and I just got a couple questions for you. We'll get to know you a little bit, get you out in the scene for people who aren't aware of Music in Motion Columbus, and get them familiar with your podcast. Maybe
Sounds
get
good.
you some more viewers.
Excellent.
So I got to sit in with Rick a few weeks ago. He had just hit his 100th episode on the Cat Club podcast. So how many episodes have you recorded since then?
You were here, what, 3 weeks ago or so, give or take?
Yeah.
Okay, so it must have been longer than that because we're now at, I think, episode 105.
105. Wow.
Every single week we do a show, so I lose track. They all kind of blur together a little bit.
And it's every Sunday, right?
Every Sunday I record the show, and we publish the show on Monday mornings.
Monday
midday sometimes.
All right. Do you have a website for that?
musicinmotioncolumbus.com.
All right. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Music in Motion Columbus, again, you can head to the website www.columbusmusicinmotion.com, or is it
musicinmotioncolumbus.com.
Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. A lot of people actually drop the Columbus off of it and just call it Music in Motion. But that's actually a separate website that doesn't do anything. They just don't name, and they wanted way too much money for me to take it. So,
So was it just a coincidence that the abbreviation is Mimic, or did you mean for that to happen?
no, it's just a happy coincidence.
Happy coincidence? Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about how you got the idea for Music in Motion Columbus?
Sure. Originally from New York, moved out to Ohio in 2004. And being from New York, I grew up with all these, there were fanzines and local media outlets, and then the bigger ones, obviously, like the Village Voice, Rolling Stone magazine when it was good. But I could go to a show at CBGB's or the Cat Club or the Mud Club. Granted, I'm dating myself right now because that was, the early 80s, late 70s. And go to a show on a Friday night at one of those clubs and read about it on a Monday.
Okay.
Or, a couple of bands would get together and release a split 7-inch, long before the digital age. And they would review it in one of these magazines or in-depth interviews.
Right.
So that's what I grew up with. It was more than what you see today, the national trend being short articles, 250, 300 words, and a lot of video.
Right.
That's the national trend. That's what all the gurus and the experts in the internet world will tell you have to do. I'm not one for coloring within the lines.
Right.
So, moving out here in 2004, I found so many people that I met were telling me how huge and vibrant the music scene was, and the local music scene. And I found that to be true. And I was just amazed that there was all these bands, hundreds and hundreds of bands, not only in Columbus, but Central Ohio and Ohio in general. And nobody was really writing about them. So things worked out throughout late 2016, and a couple of people kind of prodded me a little bit to take the step and leap and launch musicinmotioncolumbus.com in January of 2017. And what we do is in-depth interviews, album reviews, concert reviews, the weekly 1-hour podcast.
Right.
And I do my best to hashtag everything support local music, as I'm sure you've seen.
Right.
So I'm all about the local scene. I try to limit our national coverage to really no more than 2 national bands per month.
Okay.
Because the focus is local.
Right.
Anybody can write about or get an interview with the regional national bands coming through. I want it to be different.
Right.
And side note that kind of ties in with this was back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a radio station with very limited transmitting power on Long Island. the western end of Long Island, which is actually pretty much New York City,
Right.
called WLIR. And they were really credited with launching the new wave, not genre, not launching it, but bringing it to America.
Right.
They were actually showing up at the airports and the docks when the imports were coming from overseas to the United States. And they broke U2. Maybe they were the first radio station to play them and all these other new wave bands. But their tagline was Dare to be Different. Growing up with that, I took that to heart. So that's what I'm trying to do with Music in Motion Columbus.
Right. Dare to be different.
Exactly.
And I see that you use that as a hashtag as well.
Yes.
Well, so did the Cat Club podcast like initially tie in with Music in Motion when you first started, or did that come afterwards?
The podcast was always something I wanted to do. I've been podcasting for pretty close to a decade now, covering hockey, soccer, whatnot. I've done a couple of different podcasts along with the professional sports teams that I was covering as a reporter. So I'd get together with other reporters and we'd sit down and talk about the sports and the athletes and whatnot here locally.
Right.
So podcasting was nothing, I guess, new to me. Going back almost 30 years, I got my start, in radio in 1989. So to me, podcasting is nothing more than on-demand radio. So it's really easy to do for me. It's something I just kind of fell back into in the radio days. Come back in. So, and
it was really nice being able to sit in and see the podcast aspect a few weeks ago. I did post a previous video,
right.
just kind of showing everything what you do, and we had Wonder Dog.
Yes, who is a character among characters,
and he just went on
Columbus's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Columbus with an apostrophe after the S.
He actually took third place, I saw.
Out of 25.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Wonder Dog.
Yeah, congratulations. So I gotta ask, what would you be doing right now if you didn't host Cat Club or if you didn't make Music in Motion?
Oh, probably working and flipping burgers at some, mom and pop burger joint. I don't know. it just everybody that meets me, they can see very quickly that I have a passion for music.
Right.
Make no mistake, I don't claim to be a musician.
Right.
At all. I very rudimentary guitar player, bass guitar player too. But I leave it to the professionals, the
right.
bands and the musicians. The old adage, those that can't do teach. Well, in the music world, those that can't play write about it. so that's what I do. But I bring my passion to music, doing that. But I honestly don't know what I would be doing right now if I didn't do this. Mm-hmm. I've always gravitated towards jobs that make me happy, mm-hmm. which usually means I don't make a lot of money.
and so sometimes that's how it happens. But you're doing what you love. You're very passionate about it. Anybody can see that. For those who follow Rick's podcast, you can definitely tell he's very energetic. He definitely brings his guest into the podcast. And
a lot of coffee and Red Bull.
and Bailey's Irish Cream.
And Bailey's Irish Cream. We'll keep that quiet.
So do you have any memorable guests or any memorable moments in the show that you'd like to talk about with us?
Oh goodness, 100 plus episodes now to draw from at this point, and with the podcast, I want to say it was late November or early December of 2017. So it would have been the first year, the inaugural year of the website and the podcast. I had the pleasure of having the entire band, all 5 members of Betty Machete and the Angry Cougars.
Wow.
For those of you that don't know, is a fantastic punk rock band here locally in Columbus. And they're not kids. They're all, my age. We're all not necessarily senior citizens yet. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But, we've been around for a few decades, each of us. And, the stories that we started to get into on that show, these are stories that went back to their bands in the 80s and big bands they were playing with, and same, some of the big bands that I saw in house shows
right.
in the early 80s that, that was before they called them house shows. House shows are kind of a thing now, where musicians, especially smaller regional touring musicians, they'll do a house show
Right.
for whatever money they can get at these things. But back in the 80s, they were house shows. It was just the houses got trashed. It was crazy. But yeah, that story came out, and we tried not to go too deep into it because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But it was for anybody that's seen Betty Machete and the Angry Cougars, their stage persona.
Right.
I mean, they are rock and rollers, longtime rock and rollers. But in person, Betty Machete herself, it's like light and day, or night and day, where it's like a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
Flips the light, and she's quiet, calm, talks softly. But yet, when she's on stage, the first time I saw them, funny story, it kind of relates to this. The first time I saw Betty Machete was at Ace of Cups
Mm-hmm.
for a local recording studio, Relay Recording, did their Relay weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a whole weekend of shows. And I saw Betty Machete on the first night, the Friday night. And I was afraid to move and go to the bar and get a beer. I thought she was going to come off the stage and kick my ass. She really was just commanded your attention, her stage presence.
Right.
It was just, you were drawn to, I can't move type of thing.
Right.
But then having her on the show, quiet, calm.
Meek, mild.
Not necessarily meek. I mean, she's a strong woman, but she doesn't, her stage persona is not her everyday
Mm-hmm.
type of persona. She knows when to do it, when not to.
Right.
Consummate professional. And like I said, the whole band, they've been playing music for decades if you put it all together collectively.
Mm-hmm.
But the stories they told, we started to get into them, then we're like, oh, better not. But it got a little loud during that show. And normally during the Cat Club podcast, during an episode, which is an hour long,
Mm-hmm.
you were here for the show. We played 3 or 4 songs from the band, our featured guest that week, talk about the music and whatnot. Well, Betty Machete had just released a brand new 7-inch before I had them on the show.
Mm-hmm.
6 songs, but all their songs are under 2 minutes.
Right.
It's like the Ramones that way, who I love. So I played all 6 songs and still was like, okay, well, what else are we going to talk about? We had plenty to talk about in that, but that was a very memorable episode because of that collective. We were talking about bands that we had seen at separate times in the same year 30 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. I've had obviously Wonder Doug, my first comedian on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and he's dialed into the local music scene.
Mm-hmm.
Knows a lot of people, a lot of bands,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of venues that he's performed at, and seen bands and booked shows and whatnot. So that was interesting because I didn't know where the show was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I never do, and that's, as you saw, I don't script anything out. It's all stream of consciousness wherever the conversation.
Just like now.
Exactly. And I'm a talker, as we all see here.
But you know what? That's okay.
Cheers.
So, what are some of your greatest inspirations? I know you said you started out, growing up with the different reviews and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, would you say that that's something that really inspires you? Like anything in particular?
I never cared for a lot of reviews that I read, and it wasn't a personal thing with the writer or the journalist. I just didn't care for the way they relayed the information. I'm a music geek. I love getting all the information that I can
Mm-hmm.
about a band, especially a band you're into.
Right.
And as a kid, before I was even a teenager, you'd buy an LP, a vinyl LP.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, kids, they weren't $35 back then. They were like $7.99 tops. But if you wanted the lyrics to the new songs on this album, there was a little thing in the print that said, "Send a self-addressed stamped envelope to, blah 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 address in New York or LA,"
Right.
and you'd get literally an old IBM dot matrix printout of the lyrics.
So kind of like MapQuest. Almost.
Yeah, well. Oh, MapQuest is light years ahead of where this was. It was somewhere in a box store here, in the studio. I have old printouts from Blue Oyster Cult,
Mm-hmm.
back in the 70s of lyrics
Right.
that I sent away for to get. It's not like the internet where you just jump on and boom,
Right.
they're right there. And I have no idea where I was going with this. So, making fun of myself, blonde moment,
No, I mean that's obviously something that inspires you, that you're passionate about. And,
Oh, yes, the inspiration. Now I know. She reminded me. It wasn't really a journalist or a writer, as I said. I mean, the big one that everybody knows, at least everybody that's maybe over the age of 2, was Robert Christgau,
Okay.
from the Village Voice. Guy was an asshole. I mean, he really was. Some people would say, well, he's just being real. He called it the way he sees it. Well, to me, a lot of times he was kind of like a shock jock for the journalism world,
Mm-hmm.
for the music journalism world. He would say things to get a rise out of people. So I didn't pattern what I do after him, but I did like the fact that his reviews were detailed and rather long. It was long form journalism. That was a thing back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm using that term. Back in the day, and I mean, longer than 2002.
Right.
We're going back to before a lot of kids were born. But it was just it was one of those things that I wanted to do. I wanted to bring long form journalism back, because what we do with Music in Motion, and I've stressed this and brought people on board that want to write and be photographers with us and whatnot. What we do is we're all passionate about music.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to like every genre or form of music, but good music is good music, and it deserves to be written about, deserves to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do. I brought long form journalism back, and keeping it informative.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to people that are already music fans. I don't want, I'm not trying to generate a new music fan.
Right.
So I don't necessarily have to subscribe to the keep everything short and have a lot of video, because I don't buy into the generality of millennials have a short attention span.
Right.
Yes, the internet and the digital age and everything being on mobile devices has contributed to the attention spans getting short. There's been compelling enough content to keep people on the sites.
Right.
That's just churning out clickbait.
Right.
When you do the small, short little articles, grab them with a headline, one sentence, and then, boom, you get your click.
Right.
We're not about that at all. I want to, every time you come to the website, or any music fan, whether it's reading an article, an in-depth interview, or reading a review of a show or an album review, or listening to the podcast, I want you to learn something about the band that we're interviewing, talking with, that you didn't know before.
Right.
And I've had fans that have been, fans of a particular band here locally for 2, 3, 4, 5 years or more,
Mm-hmm.
say, I didn't know that about the band.
Right.
And it's not that I'm some genius in getting bands to talk about this.
Right.
It's just wherever the conversation takes us, that's usually when the stuff comes out.
Right.
Everybody's guard is kind of down. It's more of a conversation.
And that's kind of what I wanted to bring to you today with the whole Leave It to Weaver interview.
I love that line. Leave it to Weaver.
I actually didn't know anything about Music in Motion Columbus until you reached out, and you reached out because of a mutual friend that we have.
Yes.
And I was
said you needed help, and you were in the media school, and I'm all about passing on my experiences and whether it's life experience or job experience, you pass it on to the next generation, to the next people that want to do either what you're doing or something you've done before.
Right. that's
how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
Not only as a music community, but just as people, human beings.
Right. And I wanted to get you out there for the next generation who may not be familiar with Music in Motion or the Cat Club podcast,
Right.
because, even though it's local, a lot of people aren't familiar with the local scene, and you'd be surprised that, you can name local bands and people will look at you like, okay, who's that,
Exactly. Well, and that's because nobody's, and I don't want to say nobody, I'm generalizing when I say nobody. There have been, media outlets or blogs and blog and media outlet are interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a blog post or an article. Semantics, however you want to call it. but everybody has kind of had their own little niche
Mhm.
that they cover, that they're comfortable covering. You know, whether that's the indie alternative scene or the hip hop scene or the heavy metal scene or whatnot.
Mhm.
With Music in Motion, good music is good music, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, I'm still waiting for that first gospel choir to contact me and say, "Hey, check out one of our concerts." I'm like, "I'll do it."
Right.
Don't know how I would cover a gospel choir concert,
Mhm.
but I'd give it a stab. Especially if it's good.
Right.
You know.
And would you say that doing this has brought you out of your comfort zone? You know, like.
Oh, I step out of my comfort zone every day I wake up. It's one thing I've never been afraid of. Is I'm not afraid of change, not afraid of taking a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I learned at a young age, the only way that we grow in our chosen field or as people is stepping out of your comfort zone. Take that chance. If you fail, you fail.
Mm-hmm.
You learn from that experience. You chalk it up, put it in your memory bank. You try not to make those same mistakes
Mm-hmm.
and keep pushing forward. And that's what we've tried to do. Everything that we've done, and I say we collectively because it is a true team effort.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a cliche that I use. We all, with Music in Motion Columbus and the Cat Club podcast, strive to learn from what we've done. And there are things that we've done that haven't quite worked out.
Right.
And it's not a formula. I mean, it's an ever-evolving thing that we're doing.
Right.
So we learn from what hasn't worked before, chalk that up to, okay, well, we tried that route. Let's try a little bit different tack going forward. So, yeah, jumping out of my comfort zone is not afraid, never have been. I'm the guy that, you go up to the edge of the cliff and they, don't want to go over the abyss, but, I know where the edge is because, I've stepped over a little bit and held on by a thread. As Hunter S. Thompson, my favorite author, once said, the only people that know where the edge is those who've been to the edge and gone over a little bit. Right. So jumping out like that, yeah.
And 105 episodes, and here you are, and you're still going.
What the hell was I thinking? It's like, oh my God, and that was the 105 episodes. We launched, like I said, musicinmotioncolumbus.com launched in January of 2017. Mm-hmm. The Cat Club podcast launched in April of 2017. And we're now in the beginning of May 2019. So just over 2 years ago.
Right.
And I actually took the time and went back and counted it up. I've only missed 5 weekends episodes where I didn't do a show. For whatever reason, whether I was out of town, I have family back in New York that I frequently go back and visit and trying to juggle a schedule and everything, especially the last couple of years. But I've only missed 5 episodes. And, smart or just a glutton for punishment?
Well, I mean, five times in a matter of 2 years.
Just over 2 years, yeah.
I mean, that's better than most people going to their average work and, calling off every other day or, whatever the case might be. So, I mean, good for you.
Well, I try. A lot of people would think that I'm a little bit crazy for doing that, plus going to the shows, and my weekends are just, chock full of scheduling, whether it's interviews, shows, whatever, between me and the staff, the number of different photographers that we have that we use and showcase their work on the website, but it's just like a very little sleep, a lot of coffee and Red Bull, and as she said, Irish cream from Bailey's. I wish we were endorsed by them.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be something, right? So speaking of like shows and projects and everything like that, so what are some of the upcoming projects that you have?
Last year we actually covered our first multi-day festival, and that was the Camp Pumpkin Drublic down at Legend Valley last June, the first weekend of June, which happened to coincide with the Bunbury Festival in Cincinnati and the Nelsonville Music Festival. That was all the same weekend, all those festivals. So we were the only Columbus media outlet that covered all 3 days of the Punk Rock Festival. And when they announced this year's show, 3-day festival, before I could even shoot them an email and say, hey, we'd love to cover it again, I got an email from the PR company agency saying, we'd love to have you back. And I was like, cool.
We're both on the same page.
Exactly. But in addition to covering that, and that's the first weekend of June this year, we're also covering what used to be called Rock on the Range, is now called Sonic Temple Arts and Music Festival here at Moffray Stadium, where the Columbus Crew play. 3-day music festival. We're credentialed for that. A photographer and a writer are going to be covering that all 3 days. So it's a busy, this month especially is just like compact and everything up, trying to coordinate coverage for 2-3 day festivals in the span of 2 weeks.
Right.
Plus the local stuff that we're always doing. So we're growing that way. And we're still waiting to hear back from a couple of other festivals that we're looking at hopefully covering. But our name is getting out there on a national level, which kind of surprised me.
I mean, start small. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but it was never my desire with the website and the podcast, because the podcast and the website, they go together. They're hand in hand. It's like the companion piece that goes with the website. So the website is the written and the visual, and the podcast is the audio. So it's the whole ball of wax here. But it was never my vision or my goal, my stated goal I want to be huge nationally. I don't. If that happens, that's great. But we're, like I said, support local music. That's what we do. Right. That's our goal. That's all I want to do. And it sounds like an easy thing, but it's not.
No, it really isn't. And I mean, even
to do it well. And I don't like doing things halfway and just putting something up on the site or on the podcast that sounds like they're, to use the proverbial tagline, 2 kids down in their mom's basement doing the show. We like to make fun of people that do that. And that's all fine and good, but I don't want to be that. We are, based on my journalism experience, covering professional sports teams and whatnot, and my radio experience going back decades, and the live music experience industry that I worked in for almost 10 years. I want this to be as professional as I can make it. Right. Doesn't mean suit and tie. No, we're pretty casual around here, as you can tell by my t-shirt. But once again, repping local, the Typical Johnsons, fantastic local band just outside, more Central Ohio versus Columbus. They're not right here in Columbus, but fantastic band. So.
And, speaking of centralized, the last time you and I sat down, we actually discovered that we're both covering an event coming up in September.
Yes.
For our mutual friend, actually.
It's her birthday weekend or month. I'm not sure which, but she had a month and a half, 2 months ago or so, had come to me and said she wanted to put on this show with multiple bands. Wasn't sure how she wanted to do it or what it would entail. She just knew that she wanted to celebrate her birthday weekend, birthday month, and also incorporate her love of the band Queen. She just had a tattoo of Freddie Mercury. Yep. Tattooed on her, I believe, her arm.
Yes, I got all the pictures of that before and after it was completed. So
we put together. I brainstormed. I got together with another local musician who has his own production company. Does select events. He doesn't overextend himself. But he's a hustler. He's widely known in the local community. Has contacts everywhere. We sat down with him. What is it going to take to put this on locally?
It's a charity show.
It is a charity show. All of the profits from the ticket sales and the door, people paying at the door to come in, will be donated to the Mercury Phoenix Trust, which is Freddie Mercury's trust. It's been around for decades.
And we didn't even know about it until we just happened to... So it's funny because her and I were actually sitting down watching the new Bohemian Rhapsody movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
You have to. It's great.
This is the year of Queen.
Yeah. But we were sitting down watching this movie, and we just happened to go on our phones, and she was talking about the event. She really wanted to do something for it, and she wanted to celebrate it with Queen.
Right.
And we came across the Mercury Phoenix Trust. And I actually reached out to them, and everything that is going to be filmed for Leave It to Weaver, is going to have their logo.
Nice.
So I'm actually going to be putting together a video presentation and actually broadcasting it. So
I hope I don't, drag down the trust here.
no, but I actually even made her her own female version of a Freddie Mercury outfit.
Oh, very nice.
So,
Well, that was one of the things that her and I discussed. Initially, she was like, I want the bands to cover Queen and whatnot. A lot of local bands, one, they're intimidated by covering Queen. Most bands would be.
Mm-hmm.
They were, innovators, and so many bands have tried to duplicate and imitate that sound, and you just can't. Because you just can't pull it off.
Right.
But we did find, I want to say, five or six bands that will be playing. We'll be having it at Ruby Tuesday Live, September 27th of this year. And it's a Friday night. And those bands agreed to do at least one song covering Queen. The rest will be all of their own original music. But it's going to be an event. Like I said, the ticket sales and the day of show door sales, people coming in the door, that money will be donated to the Mercury Phoenix Trust. We're also going to be having raffles and whatnot. And the proceeds from those will be donated to local, I believe, AIDS charities and LGBTQ charities here locally. So it is a true charity show. We're not making any money off of this.
Absolutely. So if you're interested, if you don't have anything to do that Friday night, if you're really big into charity, definitely come out for that. Again,
and big into good music.
Yeah, and support the local bands. Rick will be there. I will be there.
They're not coming to see me, though.
Well, no, but they might want to meet you after this. Who knows?
Oh, as the saying goes, have a great face for radio, kids.
But just again, come support the locals. Donate to charity. It's going to be a really big event. Of course, it's at Ruby Tuesdays.
Ruby Tuesday Live on Summit Street. Is it Summit Street? Yeah, it's Summit Street.
Summit Street.
Had to think about that for a second. On Summit Street, September 27th, Friday night of this year, and we'll be promoting that more and more as we get a little bit into the summertime. I've found if you start way too early, people tend to forget about it. So
what project that so besides this one, because I'm proud of it, I don't know about you, because it's all going to be charity.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any other projects that you could say that you're proud of?
Projects? My life is a project. No, I don't look at things as projects, I guess. It's just the next thing. It's everything that I do is what can we do to make the podcast, the website, better? What can we do to better serve the people that, come to our website?
Right.
I'm proud to say that we're in just over 2 years since we launched the website. We're so close right now. Like 1,000 visitors away of breaking 50,000 visitors.
Wow.
We've done that without paying for promoted social media, which is, people buy followers and they promote tweets, and Facebook is really, really harsh if you have a business or that type of a page, because Music in Motion Columbus is a business type page. They hammer you every time you post something. Spend this much money to boost the post. We don't do that.
Right.
Everything we do is organic, and to almost break 50,000 visitors in the first 2 years, and it's all word of mouth, and we're a hyper local website. Not a term that I came up with. It's credited to Randy Malloy at CD1025, good friend of mine, fellow New Yorker. We're both New Yorkers from back in the day.
There's that term.
But we call Columbus home. This is our home now, and we want to do what we can to support the city and the music scene.
Absolutely. And without you, I feel like the music wouldn't be advertised.
We record. It's just like I said, on-demand radio. Mm-hmm. So I treat it as a live show when we do it. So it's 1 hour long when I have guests here, and the only editing that I do of the show itself is the vocal track I pull off from the software, pull that off and make sure the levels are good. But I don't edit anything out. I don't overdub anything after the fact. It's live to tape, as they used to say. Once again, back in the day, it's live to digital recording, to wave file or audio file at this point. So I don't do a lot of editing. Make sure the levels are good, make sure everything mixes together well, and then it's just, you download that and then upload that to your server, and then publish it on your blog, your website, whatever your platform is that you're using. So it's not a lot of editing that way. It's the pre-production that takes longer,
right,
for me to do. I can get if I bust my up, start to finish. Once I start editing a show, it's to the time I get it up on our website, so it's on the server, and then again published on our website, about an hour tops. But that's because I do the pre-production on the front end.
Right.
It's my OCD once again jumps in. But getting all that done, the pre-production is depending on the show, depending on the band, depending how crazy I'm going to get with it. It could take anywhere from 30 minutes to 5 hours. It's all with what you want to do with it. Making each show memorable. Right. That way. So it's a combination of everything together, but the editing on the back end doesn't take that long.
Okay. Well, I mean, for anyone that's interested in doing that, you got to at least have a system.
Plan it out. But once again, don't be so rigid that you're unwilling to deviate from that. That's why I don't script out our shows, as you well saw. And a lot of times I don't know where the conversation's going to go. Right. But that's what it is. It's not an interview. It's a conversation, right, which is what I want. Everybody's more relaxed that way. We're pretty casual around here.
Well, Rick, I really appreciate you sitting down with me today. Again,
rock star right here, rock star.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. So, for anyone again who's interested, Rick Gethin, Music in Motion Columbus. Check him out, musicinmotioncolumbus.com. He runs the Cat Club podcast. He has it every Sunday going into Monday.
Every Monday, new episode. So that's where you'll see that, and that's right on the website. So just go to musicinmotioncolumbus.com. Easily navigable site. Ooh, wow, that's a big word. You can navigate through everything real easily. The masthead's real, drop-down menu on the mobile device. It's mobile friendly for all the people that use only their phones for everything. I'm old and wear glasses, and that's just too small to look at. The widescreen, the laptop is what I use on mine. But everything is from the website. So musicinmotioncolumbus.com. Get to the podcast, get to the articles, the reviews, everything is right there.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. And this has been Leave It to Weaver. So
remember, support local music, kids.
Yes, absolutely. And dare to be different.
Dare to be different, always.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go home. Good night, sweetheart. Well,